Hi everybody, this is part 2 of record show finds. We had a record show last Sunday and I picked up a whole mess of jazz, 42 records. And in the first half I showed 10-inch records and kind of vocal jazz, piano stuff, and some jazz tone compilations. But now we're going to get more into kind of like organ jazz, Hammond organ players, and guys playing horns. And yeah, some other kind of stuff like that. So here we go. First up, organ player Johnny Hammond Smith on Prestige, Getting the Message. Johnny Hammond Smith with Lem Winchester. Lem Winchester on vibes, Eddie McFadden guitar, Wendell Marshall bass, and Bill Erskine drums. Not familiar with most of these guys. Yeah, that's an early Prestige Fireworks label. And another one, obviously a later Prestige. This one from Richard Groove Holmes called Misty. And he's got Gene Edwards guitar, George Randall drums. Again, I'm not really familiar with those guys. I think this one's from the late 60s. Blue label with the Trident. Obviously a later pressing. And getting into some heavier organ stuff here. Probably the king of the Hammond organ. Back in the day on Blue Note Records, this is Jimmy Smith, the incredible Jimmy Smith. First one up, Back at the Chicken Shack. Here he's got Stanley Turrentine on tenor sax, Kenny Burrell on guitar, and Donald Bailey on drums. I think Donald Bailey was his main drummer for these Blue Note dates, it seems like. And this one, let's take a look. These were from a vendor. He had didn't have a whole lot of stuff, see, these records said $5 each, or 3 for $10. And I bought a couple Jimmy Smith records and Chuck Wayne 10-inch, and because the 10-inch was in a $2 box, I asked him if you take 9 for the 3, and you did. So basically $3 for these two of these Jimmy Smith records I'm showing here. This one's got the New York, USA on the label there, so it's number 4117, so that may be the original pressing. Next up, Prayer Meeting, Jimmy Smith with Stanley Turrentine, and Quentin Warren on guitar, and again Donald Bailey on drums. And let's take a look at the label on this one. This one is a division of Liberty Records. So depending on the year, it might be a first pressing. These are kind of getting later, 4164. And then finally, I can't remember which two I got from that guy's booth, but I don't think I paid more than $3 for these Jimmy Smith records each. The incredible Jimmy Smith with Quentin Warren and Donald Bailey again on guitar and drums. Bucket. And nice stereo pressing. And got the original inner sleeve with the different records on Blue Note. This one's got the New York, USA label. New York, USA address on the label. And for $42.35. It's kind of weird to say Division of Liberty, so must be an early pressing on this one. Okay, so getting out of organ jazz into vibes here, we've got the MRC label, basically a Mercury label. Terry Gibbs Plays the Duke, tribute to Duke Ellington. So Terry Gibbs on vibes, marimba, and xylophone, really cool. Pete Jolly on accordion. Very interesting. Leroy Vinegar bass, Gary Frommer drums. Kind of neat. Just barely familiar with Terry Gibbs. And more vibe stuff along with different flute vibes, piano, bass, and drums on the Savoy label. I think I've only got one other LP on Savoy by Al Caiola, and then I've got some old 78s on Savoy. But this is Opus de Jazz, and this is the original cover art, which didn't list any of the players on the front. And it looks like, to me, like something out of the 1940s, kind of like an industrial illustration, black and white. Kind of weird, that weird font. A year later they reissued it with the names of the players on the front. The players are Frank West on flute, Milt Jackson on vibes, probably known from the Modern Jazz Quartet, Hank Jones on piano, Eddie Jones on bass, and Kenny Clark on drums. So yeah, really cool stuff. I'll show you that Savoy label. And this one, seams are all splitting, but yeah, the record just barely scuffed up and plays really, really well. So that's cool to have an old Savoy. Sometimes I like picking stuff up just because I don't have anything on a certain label. Just kind of like as a, part of me is like an antique collector. I enjoy getting old stuff, even if it's a little beat up, just to kind of look into the history of it and learn a little bit about it. And stuff like this next record is kind of interesting when I find something that I didn't know. I know this player, but I didn't know he recorded for this label. This is Eddie Lockjaw Davis, tenor sax player, Big Beat Jazz on the King Records label. And I've got a couple King records with a guy named Bill Doggett playing organ. And it doesn't really list the players on here, but I'm pretty sure he's got Shirley Scott playing organ. They played together for a long time. I think maybe they both came up out of Philly. There's the King label. A year later, this is 1957, I think, in 1958, the record Jaws came out with Eddie Lockjaw Davis and Shirley Scott. A great record on Prestige. So it's kind of cool finding it out on King Records. I didn't even realize he recorded for that label. Next up, a couple from big name and the early sax players in jazz. This is Lester Young. Prez is Blue. This is on the Charlie Parker Records label. I like the back there. It just says Prez is Blue. Nice gatefold here. Nice illustration, nice photo. So yeah, pretty cool. I don't think I had anything on the Charlie Parker label, or Parker Records, I guess, or Charlie Parker Records. Really pretty neat. It says distributed by MGM Records. An unprecedented high fidelity. So cool. Another one, this one on Verve Records. Going for Myself, Harry Edison and Lester Young. Harry Edison on trumpet. Let's see who else is in the band. Oscar Peterson piano, Ray Brown bass, Herb Ellis guitar, Louis Belson drums, Lou Stein piano, Mickey Sheen drums. And this is probably an early Verve Clef series. Well, it doesn't say on the label. Verve Clef series. Pretty cool. I don't think I had any Lester Young in my collection other than on the Savoy 78 RPM, old 78 records, which I don't really have a means to play. Here's one on United Artists Jazz by Howard McGee. Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. And unfortunately, this one's got a slight little warp. I put it on the turntable and you can't even see it when you hold the record up, really. You can't see it when the record's spinning, but man, the needle just bump, bump. Each rotation it hops. So pretty annoying. I'm hoping I can just put it between a couple pieces of glass out on a sunny day here, give it, 20 minutes or so in the heat and knock that little warp out. It's not really a bad warp at all, but just enough to make the needle hop. So you got two different bands from two different sessions, I guess. There's the label. Kind of an interesting label. United Artists Jazz. One session, Howard McGee on trumpet, Ron Carter on bass, Jimmy Jones piano, and Art Taylor on drums. And then the other session, McGee on trumpet, Larry Ridley on bass, Phil Porter organ, and Dave Bailey on drums. Dave Bailey, the guy I played on so many of those Jimmy Smith records on Blue Note. And coming up next, player I'm not too familiar with, a tenor player named Curtis Amy. This is from Pacific Jazz, Tippin' On Through. So Curtis Amy on tenor sax, Roy Brewster on trombone, Roy Ayers on vibes, familiar with him, John Huston piano, Bob Whitlock bass, Lawrence Marable on drums. Most of these guys I don't know, but obviously know Roy Ayers. And this is a Pacific Jazz stereo. This looks like a later pressing when they were a division of Liberty Records, like Blue Note. And this was this is from the local record store here in town. He had some boxes, several boxes of records, and they were all 50% off. I'd seen this in the store probably 2 years ago and wanted to buy it, but it was just a little pricey at 15 bucks. But at $7.50, decided to pull the trigger. And another one from the local record shop. This is on Argo Records. It's called the Jazz Tet with Art Farmer and Benny Golson. And this one was $10 originally, so half off, $5. And really nice shape. So let's see, other players in the band. Let's see, Art Farmer trumpet, Benny Golson tenor sax, Curtis Fuller on trombone, McCoy Tyner on piano, great piano player, Addison Farmer bass, and Lex Humphreys on drums. Really cool. Yeah, I've seen this probably at least over a year, maybe 2 years ago in his shop, and wanted to buy it, but just didn't quite want to spend full price. I was really excited to find this for half off at the collection. And another great sax player, West Coast player, but a little more experimental than many of the West Coast guys who were more kind of had the typical Hollywood sound, kind of movie soundtrack, cool jazz sound. This is Jerry Mulligan, Night Lights, and this is on the Mercury Wing label. So Mercury Wing, I think, was kind of like a budget label. They reissued a lot of stuff from the Mercury catalog, and so I'm guessing this originally came out on an early Mercury pressing, or MRC. So I think it was more kind of like their jazz label. But yeah, I don't think it says much about the other players on this, so I'll have to do a little research on that. But I really like Jerry Mulligan, no matter what he plays on. And speaking of West Coast players, here's one from the West Coast label Contemporary. This is the music of Bob Cooper. And they're kind of known for, they got some goofy album covers on the Contemporary label. So this one's called Coop. Coop. Pretty neat. This is a fantasy reissue. But yeah, they tend to do these fantasy or original jazz classics reissues, tend to be really nice. So Bob Cooper tenor sax, Frank Rossellino trombone, Victor Feldman on vibraharp vibes, Lou Levy on piano, Max Bennett on bass, and Mel Lewis on drums. And also Pete Candoli, Don Fagerquist, and Conte Candoli on a couple tracks. So some nice classic West Coast jazz. Actually, yeah, it's got the OJC, Original Jazz Classics catalog number in there. Classic alto player, alto sax player. This is a later album from, I think, '69 on Verve. Kind of got a little bit of a psychedelic cover. Rippin' and Runnin' from Johnny Hodges. As you can see, it's a DJ, not for sale, I guess radio copy. Produced by Esmond Edwards. So Johnny Hodges alto sax, Freddie Waits drums, Ron Carter on bass, Willie Gardner organ, and Jimmy Ponder on guitar. And I'll show you the record label on this. It's pretty cool. It's a yellow and black Verve label, which I guess was their disc jockey, not for sale promo record label there. And just a few more. Next up, an artist I'm not really familiar with, and this is on the Clef Records label, one of Norman Granz's labels before Verve. This is Flip Phillips and his orchestra, Flip Wales. So again, cover art by David Stone Martin. So in his band, let's see, featuring Bill Harris, Harry Edison, he'd be trumpet, Ray Brown bass, Hank Jones piano, Billy Bauer guitar, Buddy Rich drums. So a pretty heavy duty band there. I just not familiar with Flip Phillips. And again, it's on the Clef Records label. And so two more. This one's kind of cool. I've heard of Michel Legrand, but I don't really have any of his records. This one on Columbia, called Legrand Jazz, with 31 of America's greatest jazzmen, featuring Miles Davis. Really playing up the Miles Davis thing. Yeah, a lot of great players on here. Ben Webster, tenor sax, Herbie Mann on flute, Billy Byers trombone. We could go on and on. Hank Jones piano, George Duvivier bass, Bill Evans piano, Eddie Costa vibes, Paul Chambers bass, Miles Davis trumpet, John Coltrane tenor sax, Barry Galbraith guitar. Yeah, it just goes on and on. A lot of great players. And that's a Columbia 6i, and this was another one from the $2 bin. I had to run. I ran down the street to the ATM and got an extra $40 so I could come back and buy about 16 of his $2 records there. And finally, the very last one. I've had a copy of this before, but the record was kind of hopelessly warped, and so I was really excited to find this one. And I paid $4 or $5 for this. Lady had a lot of really great jazz stuff. Like she said, her husband collects jazz records, but unfortunately, a lot of this stuff was. You know, it's the very end of the show I discovered it, and I didn't really have much money left. I had like $9 left, so I just bought a couple records. A living stereo pressing, Mundell Lowe and his All-Stars, guitarist Mundell Lowe. He's also an arranger. His version of Porgy and Bess. So yeah, Mundell Lowe and his All-Stars, George Duvivier, bass, Don Elliott vibes and piano, I'd guess. Art Farmer, O.C. Johnson, Tony Scott on clarinet, Ben Webster, Ed Shaughnessy. And this is actually on the RCA Camden label. I don't think this ever came out on the actual RCA Victor black label. I think it originally came out on the Camden subsidiary. So yeah, really excited to have a decent playing copy of this in the collection. Mundell Lowe is an excellent guitarist, but also a interesting arranger. And one more record. I had a thing, I think this is from the guy that had the boxes that were 2 for $1, and I just needed one more record to kind of fill out. I had like 9 records, so to get one free, this is basically a freebie. This one on the Coronet Records label, The Music of Port Said, Exotic Rhythms of the Middle East Captured in High Fidelity, Mohammed El Suleiman and his Oriental Ensemble. So I don't know if this is serious music or just kind of silly, or it's on the budget Coronet Records label. So what the heck, I figured I'd give it a shot. So that's it. 42. This is the second half of my 42 records I picked up at the record show here in town. Thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoy jazz. I know I'm really starting to love it. Just something about it, just relaxing and stimulating at the same time. Thanks for watching. Probably be a while before I make another video. I've blown my vinyl budget for quite a while. But yeah, I'll see you in the future. Bye guys.